Well, right now we are in pursuit. Basically, we are. The authorities are more in an illuminated following, if you will. Not so much a pursuit. They're just following the ambulance here, not doing any kind of interdiction proceedings here. Southbound on Interstate 55 near about Braidwood. So we're about highway speed, about 70, 75 miles an hour here. It's not excessive. And you can see that we're just getting past kind of we're getting into the Braidwood area. We passed Wilmington already, southbound on I-55. This saga beginning all the way back on the city's southwest side. This ambulance went missing, and somebody jumped in it. It's apparently Ambulance 66 from the Chicago Fire Department, and it has just been cruising right along southbound on Interstate 55. The state police has picked up on the chase. Local jurisdictions like Summit picked up on the chase. And they initially started with a pursuit, then they backed off. They terminated. There's no reason, you can see it is bigger than a bread box. It's got the reflective chevrons on the back. So just stay behind it. Make sure that the individual who's driving this thing is not going to get into any more trouble by physically moving this ambulance down the lanes. And as you can see, the ambulance is actually transiting both lanes. It's got the left wheels in the left lane, the right wheels in the right lane. Now he's coming back a little bit to the left, but he's really going right down the middle of the road. He, she, I don't know exactly who jumped in here, but the end result is the same. You've got a loose Chicago Fire Department ambulance. You've got an unknown quantity at the wheel here. We don't know exactly who is behind the wheel, why their motivation was to just jump in and take this ambulance that apparently was running at the time, or they got it running somehow. And now they are headed to a point south along Interstate 55. So we're down by Braidwood. The pursuit continues, and I guess we could call it a pursuit because of the number of police vehicles that are here. At least a dozen, maybe more, maybe up to as many as 20 are following this. Let's back out on the camera just a little bit, and let's see how many people are actually following this. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So about a good dozen and a half vehicles here that are southbound on Interstate 55. They're keeping all unconcerned individuals back, and we will see where this winds up. We'll stay over the top, and we will bring you all of the details as this drama unfolds. I'm Chris Habermill, CBS 2 News. Sure. Well, there was no blockage at the Braidwood exit that we just passed a few seconds ago, actually. And I'm not seeing any traffic down in front here except one semi-tractor trailer that is out of the frame here about a half mile further down the road. So this ambulance is going to be lapping it in just a second here, coming up on it. And that driver of the semi-tractor trailer is off in the right lane where he should be, and then there's another semi about another half a mile or so in front of him, and you can see that state police troopers are both in the active driving lanes and off on the shoulder. So I don't see any real roadblocks anywhere or any entrance ramps that have been blocked, but they do have a lot of room for this ambulance to run. It looks like it's listing a little to port here. It looks like the left side of the ambulance is lower than the right side as it driving wheels are up. We will let you know. Yeah, we were breaking up a little bit. Uh-huh. You better ask Danny first, because they're off us right now, and so I would think that would be an opportune time to switch. should be coming up on Dwight now. It's going to be dragging. He's going to be losing directional control here. Yeah, it's because it's probably popping their tires on the other side here. As soon as the tires on the right side go, then it's going to be game over here. He's not going to have anything to have any kind of traction with. And you're recording internally, right? So I'm going to keep talking here. Southbound I-55. We're at Dwight right now. Ambulance 66 is coming apart at the seams, or at least the back end of it, the rear axle. We've got the left rear wheel set, which is completely gone. The rims are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We've got a male individual who is in there. He's dressed in looks like a blue windbreaker of some sort and a watch cap. And he was carrying what appeared to be a cell phone. He's left the driver's side window down, and he came to a stop, almost a stop, south of Gardner, between about Gardner and Dwight, and we're just passing all the exits at Dwight, and we still are continuing southbound past Dwight now, so we'd be heading towards Odell and then down towards Pontiac. So with the left rear wheels being basically out of the picture here, both the inner and outside duals, those tires are long since gone, and now the rims are progressively getting hotter and hotter, and that heat's going to be conducted into the rear end here, and that the rear end on this thing is probably going to be failing here in the not too distant future. This vehicle is starting to slow down quite substantially here. The last time a trooper tried to pull up alongside, this individual gestured out the window and yelled something at the trooper, and the trooper backed off. And then this individual took off on the southbound side of I-55. So we're just literally south of the last Dwight exit, and this vehicle is starting to drift down to where it's almost completely stopped on the roadway. So this may be over here. Looks like he's going to be bailing out. We've got the doors open. The individual is out of the ambulance here now. The driver is out. Looks like troopers are now have that individual. He is going to be apprehended here shortly. He has raised his hands in the air. He is following the commands of the state police. He is in the process of surrendering the troopers right now. That ambulance mechanically came completely apart. The rear end there basically failing after the left rear wheels, the tires came off, following the orders of the troopers here and now he's going to be taking off on foot, running across the interstate, going to be running across the northbound lanes of Interstate 55. The individual carrying some sort of a backpack, now running southbound in the northbound lanes of I-55, trying to stop a vehicle, going to be trying to, he's not going to get into that one. That guy's not going to fall for that. Here comes the K-9 unit, officers, they make the tackle, they made the apprehension, and that individual is now being taken into custody. The dog is helping out, K-9 unit is helping out. Obviously, we have a recalcitrant subject here. This individual obviously has been driving this ambulance for a long time, southbound on I-55. Jumped into this ambulance. This pursuit began back on Interstate 55 right around Cicero Avenue, and has now terminated with the ambulance, the rear end of the ambulance, the rear axle and the rear wheels falling completely apart. That individual looked like he was going to surrender to police. He looked like he was at least initially following what troopers had to tell him, following their orders, and then decided better of that and decided to just go take off on foot. That individual is now in custody. This pursuit has terminated. Interstate 55 just south of the town of Dwight by not too many, well, probably about a half mile or so past the last Dwight exit. This individual is now on the ground and in custody of the Illinois State Police and a host of other law enforcement agencies that joined in the pursuit of Chicago Fire Department Ambulance 66. For those of you who are just tuning into the live stream, we're over Interstate I-55 at Dwight, Illinois, and this has been a pursuit of Chicago Fire Department Ambulance 66. And Ambulance 66, you can see that the northbound lanes of I-55 at Dwight are closed with troopers literally standing out in the roadway. The ambulance is in the upper right corner of the screen where it came to a rest there after the rear axle came apart. We'll go back in tight on the actual apprehension here. Let's go down there and take a look and see what the officers are doing. This individual had a backpack Don't know if this individual was armed at all. Doesn't appear so. Individual was carrying a cell phone, and now they're in the process of asking that individual, what, hey, buddy, what's going on here? You led us on this pursuit here. You took an ambulance and you ran away. You didn't pay attention to what we had to tell you, and unfortunately, you had to use some force there in order to get this individual into custody. This is Ambulance 66 out of Chinatown. It's housed with Engine 8, Truck 4, and Battalion 2 on West Cermak at Wentworth. And somehow this individual got in the driver's seat of the ambulance. There was no patient inside, and took that ambulance for a ride and just kept going further and further and further and further south on I-55. At one time south of Gardner, he looked like he was going to be pulling over, since the left rear tires, the duals on the ambulance, were actually blown out and was riding on the rims. He gestured out the window and yelled something to a trooper, and when the trooper came up alongside, he basically would have none of that and punched the accelerator and accelerated as far as that ambulance would go. And basically, as the heat built up without the left rear tires on it, the rims started to really get kind of molten on there. Pieces were being thrown, pieces of shrapnel from the rims coming apart were being thrown back at pursuing officers there, so they backed off just a little bit so they wouldn't get damaged by any of the shrapnel coming out from underneath there as the rear axle kind of flew apart. And when that ambulance basically got to a mechanical state where it couldn't go any further south, this individual was forced to pull over. He got out, got down on his knees at orders of the troopers there, who had him at gunpoint, and looked as though he was going to initially follow what their instructions were, and then decided better of that and took off on foot, ran across the northbound lanes, tried to almost jump into a quad cab pickup truck that was towing a trailer. That individual would have none of that and hit the accelerator, and that individual, who is on the ground now, fell out. Our wayward driver, the hijacker of this ambulance, if you will. And so our suspect here is on the ground in the blue windbreaker and the blue coat. One of the officers at the top part of that cluster down there has got a dark colored backpack that individual had with him. He was also carrying what was believed to look like a cell phone to me, that he was waving at officers before, and would imagine that that's probably what it was, given the fact that officers did not level their weapons when he had that out the window when he stopped in traffic outside of Gardner. So again, we're on I-55 at Dwight, and the northbound and southbound lanes of I-55 are stopped with the termination of a pursuit of Ambulance 66, the Chicago Fire Department ambulance, which now sits on the side of the road on the southbound side of Interstate 55. We're on the northbound side of I-55, and the individual that was tackled here, who was driving the ambulance, he was tackled after he ran away from officers and was not obeying what the officers had to tell him. So they're sitting with him, having a little chat here, trying to figure out exactly what the motivation was, and making sure that individual gets any medical attention that is absolutely necessary here. He is in custody. They just have not removed him to any of the squad cars that are back parked behind the ambulance at the termination of this pursuit. Yeah, go ahead. I do hear you. Hello? Hello, Karen. Absolutely. Please do. Okay. Standing by. This is something you don't see every day, of course. Thankfully, an individual that stole a fire department ambulance, and of all things from the Chinatown Firehouse. That's Engine 8, Truck 4, Battalion 2, Ambulance 66 there, which is basically right at Wentworth and Cermak. Those of you who are familiar with the movie Backdraft, that was the firehouse where that engine was headquartered there, the fictional Engine 17. So basically, this individual stole this ambulance. The ambulance 66 was driven out along I-55, and there was a pursuit that began around Cicero Avenue on I-55 southbound. And what occurred after that was that basically about a dozen or so police vehicles joined in the pursuit. They kept all bystanders back at a distance, and this pursuit continued all the way until a little bit south of Gardner, where this individual pulled over for the first time because the left rear tires were completely gone, and it had been without at least one tire for quite a while, and then the other tire blew. And when that happened, it lowered the entire weight of the ambulance down on the rims. And when the rims started to fall apart, the ambulance started to slow. And this individual that you see in the blue, surrounded by state police troopers, he opened the window and was gesturing out the window with what appeared to be a cell phone. He yelled at the trooper that came up next to him. Trooper backed off a little bit, and that individual just hit the accelerator, gunned it, and started heading south towards Pontiac. So that's where basically we're at Dwight right now. We got to past the second Dwight exit, and the ambulance just couldn't take it anymore. The rear axle, the rear drivetrain, that whole assembly heated up to the point where it was useless. This individual had no choice but to pull over, and he pulled over on the left shoulder, got out, and the troopers that surrounded him at gunpoint there ordered him to put his hands up, which he did. He was initially he was very cooperative, and then all of a sudden he just decided he had enough of that and decided to run off, turned his back on troopers, and hightailed it across the grassy center median to where they're at right now. We've got an ambulance, looks like from Dwight Fire, is coming up for that individual here. No doubt he's got some issues other than just medical that are going on. May have some mental issues here as well. Obviously, anybody who takes a fire department ambulance and runs everybody on a pursuit like this for a long distance has got something more at work there. So hopefully this individual gets the help he needs. But nobody else was injured in this. He's probably scraped up a little bit because, as I said, he ran away from the officers, went across the center median, and tried to hijack a vehicle going northbound. There was a quad cab pickup truck towing a trailer. He tried to get in by way of the right side door handles. That individual hit the accelerator. He fell off, and then officers were able to swarm into him and make the apprehension. So the K-9 unit was involved. About 16 to 18 officers were here, and that individual had to be tackled literally because he was out in the live lanes of traffic on northbound I-55 here at Dwight. So traffic came to a halt. There were troopers all over the place. They didn't have their cars in place on the northbound side, obviously, because everything was on the southbound side. So they literally had to stretch themselves bodily across the northbound lane, stop traffic, and take this individual into custody. So because of the fact that there was force that had to be used, this individual was taken to the ground on a kind of a rough surface. He was taken down on the shoulder of the roadway with all that aggregate down there. And so he's in custody, and the medics are going to take a look at him right now and see what his major complaints are. But the pursuit has terminated, and let's go ahead and while they're taking a look at him, we'll have Craig go back wide on our shot here. Let's show both directions of Interstate 55. Everything is shut down here. We've got the Dwight medics parked counterflow. They're southbound and the northbound lanes of I-55. In the upper corner there, you'll see a kind of an orange pickup truck with a trailer on the northbound side. That was the individual that this person tried to carjack. He ran across in front of him and tried to pull the door open, and that didn't work. But that individual is going to give some eyewitness testimony and give a statement to the officers there. That's in the top portion of your frame. And then Ambulance 66, let's take a look at this poor thing. Ambulance 66, the rear axle is basically destroyed because of the heat coming up from the wheels that are missing on the other side there. The tire's completely out. This side looks okay, but looks are deceiving. Running on the rims only on the left rear where the tires, because it's got duals on either side, both dual tires came off on their upstream from this quite a number of miles back. And as that was being driven on the rims just kept grinding themselves further and further and further down to where they became completely unusable. So officers have left their squad cars blocking the southbound lanes of I-55 here at Dwight. The northbound side is physically blocked by officers here standing outside there, so nothing is getting by on Interstate 55 until the medics go ahead and get this individual checked out. And of course, this individual, if he's going to be going to the hospital, he's going to be taken in custody to the hospital. So there will be troopers obviously following the ambulance, and no doubt somebody in the back of that ambulance to give a little bit of extra muscle there. So that's what is happening here. It looks as though the individual is being placed in custody into the ambulance, and he's sitting on the back step there. Here comes the cot. So they're going to bring the cot out now and put that individual on there. He's looks like a younger male suspect. He's kind of thin build. He has got a watch cap on there and the blue jacket, and still no real motivation as to why this individual. He may have told the officers down below, but we're not aware of it as of yet. What was going through this guy's head? I mean, why does he have it? Why did he take it? Where was he going with it? What did he intend to do with it? Did he just view it as a crime of opportunity? Did he happen to see it there at the Chinatown station? These ambulances and fire trucks and whatnot, fire trucks usually are started with a button, a push button, and ambulances have a key in there. And it's not as though it's like your car at home or out in a parking lot. The key's going to be in the ambulance. So he could have just gone in there, saw it, decided that, hey, it may have been out on the apron. We don't know yet. So we need to hear also from not only law enforcement, but also the fire department exactly how that individual was able to get a hold of that ambulance and then take it on such a long pursuit. Fortunately, nobody has been hurt. This individual's been roughed up a little bit, and of course, there may be also some mental issues that are going on here that may factor into why this person took the ambulance in the first place. So looks like Dwight medics are going to go ahead and take him off to an area hospital, get him checked out in custody, and there's some other work that has to be done because that ambulance is not going to be moving under its own steam. So tow truck's going to have to come out here, and you can see the damage to the left rear. The left rear duals are gone, absolutely gone. So more questions than answers, but nobody got hurt, and this chase is over near Dwight. Back to you. Yeah, they're going through it to see what they got in there. Okay. You're very welcome. Glad to be of service. Wow, 66 is pretty beat up. That's going back to the shop. Chopper to the base, Greg. Are we done? We got about 30 minutes before we got to go for fuel. Zero minutes of fuel. 30. Nope. That's going to need a flatbed. And any of the local towing companies, they can call them down here, and then they'll just take it back to the shops. All right. Copy that, social media. Streaming until 7, then we are clear. Oh, yeah. So, all right. Welcome back. I'm Chris Habermill. You're watching our live stream on CBS 2 News, and we're watching the aftermath of a pursuit out of the city of Chicago. We're down at Dwight on Interstate 55, where an ambulance that was taken by an individual, a young man, was driven at relatively high speed all the way down to I-55 at Dwight. The pursuit began back on Interstate 55 right around Cicero Avenue after this ambulance was taken from the Chinatown fire station right off of Cermak and Wentworth. Those of you who may be familiar with Backdraft, that is a fire station that figured prominently, one of them in Backdraft there, where actually the fire investigator was housed at. Of course, there was another firehouse that was used off of Archer Avenue for the mythical Engine 17. And what we're looking at here is Ambulance 66 on the southbound side right around Dwight. Engine 8, Truck 4, Battalion 2, Ambulance 66 all housed there at 212, I believe, west on Cermak and Wentworth. And individual jumped into that ambulance apparently at the firehouse and got on I-55 southbound. It was noticed, it was observed around I-55 at Cicero Avenue. And that pursuit, including the state police and other local authorities, continued for some time until the left rear wheels, the tires came off of the rims, and this individual kept driving as the rims started to continuously disintegrate, forcing the ambulance to slow down a little bit. That driver actually swerving over at one time just past Gardner in order to yell and gesture out the window at the trooper, who backed off. Individual then sped off, or at least tried to, minus the left rear wheel set. And as that ambulance continued southbound, Progressively, the rims got smaller and smaller and smaller as they ground off on the pavement. What you're seeing in the foreground there, you see this quad cab pickup truck, this red pickup truck with the black trailer, dual axle trailer on there. The individual that was driving this ambulance until the rear end gave out and had to pull over here by Dwight was, at least in the early goings, following what the troopers had to say. He was in the process of surrendering and decided he was not going to surrender anymore. Ran across the grassy center median into traffic, into the live lanes of northbound I-55, and actually grabbed at the passenger side front door handle on this truck here and tried to get in. Well, this driver, being kind of wary as to what's going on, I mean, you've got troopers running across in front of you and this unknown guy that just tried to get into your truck, he just punched the accelerator. The guy fell off, the suspect fell off, and troopers swarmed into him and did the takedown on I-55 northbound, just a little bit south of the last Gardner exit. So everything is shut down on Interstate 55. It continues to be blocked here at, not Gardner, but Dwight. So we're here at Dwight, and just south of the Dwight exit ramp there. And as we go a little bit further back, Dwight ambulance, paramedics here, have that individual in custody in the back of their ambulance right now. He was roughed up a little bit, kind of out of necessity, because not knowing exactly what was going on with this person, when he decided to run off with his backpack and go playing in the live lanes of traffic on the northbound side, troopers needed to take no chance, and so it was everybody piled on. They smothered him, basically. Well, not literally. That's just a terminology you use when a lot of officers are piling up on top of you to make sure that the situation is under control, that individual is being controlled, and that he does not pose a threat to other officers or the public. So that being the case, that was done, and that individual then was complaining of some injury, plus also you have most likely some sort of a mental issue. This individual, after all, did steal an ambulance and take it for quite a lengthy trip down Interstate 55. Nobody was hurt, but at one time it appeared, at least between just north of Dwight, there was a trooper on the right shoulder, and it appears as though he aimed that ambulance toward the trooper, swerved over on purpose. So both directions of Interstate 55 here at Dwight remain shut down. We've got the individual in custody in the ambulance, the Dwight ambulance there, facing southbound and the northbound lanes of I-55. And you can see here that drivers, not really knowing what's going on, are just kind of stuck here, thinking it might be a big crash or something like that. Of course, they see on the other side of the road an ambulance, but they're not going to know until probably later that that was the end of a high-speed pursuit. So at least they'll have some sort of a story to tell after they get out of the delay here. So the individual's in custody. The ambulance has been damaged to the point where it's not drivable out of here. So it will have to be flatbedded out of here. Can't be towed. Well, it can be just to possibly get it off the roadway, but to get it back the long distance, you're going to have a heavy-duty machinery hauler type flatbed to pick this ambulance up and get it out of the live lanes of traffic. You can see that the law enforcement officers have stretched out here. We've got physical evidence that needs to be gone through. The individual was carrying a backpack, so the officers did go through that after the person was put in the back. There is a white male, kind of hard to tell. Could be late 20s, early 30s-ish, thin build, wearing a blue jacket, bright blue jacket, and a watch cap, a knitted cap. And he apparently was carrying a cell phone. From some of the imagery I saw from the nose camera here on Chopper 2, as he had the window down, he appeared to be talking to somebody on the cell phone and was gesturing with that instrument out the window toward police. So police showing great restraint here. They blocked off the traffic behind it. Didn't really get out in front of it at all. Just let this individual drive south. And basically the ambulance began the apprehension process by basically the rear end falling apart. And with the left rear wheels, the tires coming off, and the rims being ground down onto the pavement, that heats up quite a bit. The heat being conducted into the rear axle and then into the differential. No doubt things became less and less workable in the back end of that ambulance, and that individual finally pulling it off onto the left shoulder and jumped out over the fence and then deciding to go running off. So officers were able to jump the fence as well. They pursued him on foot across the live lanes of northbound I-55. What you're seeing here is the southbound side of I-55 at Dwight, just past the South Dwight entrance and exit to the town of Dwight. and the individual is in custody in the ambulance, being looked at the lower left corner, and the about the right middle on the northbound side, you got a pickup truck and a trailer. That individual tried to get on board that pickup truck. He wasn't happy with the fact that he didn't have a ride anymore, so he tried to actually get into the passenger side of that vehicle. And that didn't go so well because the driver saw what was going on and punched the accelerator, and he fell off, and officers were able to surround him and then jump on top of him and take him into custody. So everything's in stasis right here, right now. Everything is on hold because we do have a crime scene here. This is the end of a pursuit, and drivers are stopped either direction of the Dwight exit here. This is actually the second exit. Those of you who are familiar with Dwight sits in kind of the edge of a big S-curve in I-55, one of several towns that do. Gardner, Dwight, and then south of here you've got Odell. That's a straightaway, and then not until you get to Pontiac that I-55 starts to bend around a little bit again. But ambulance 66 there, lower right corner, that is the epicenter of what was going on here today, what transpired. That individual apparently jumping into that ambulance at the Chinatown station and taking it for a ride down I-55 southbound to where it just couldn't drive anymore because of damage to the left rear wheels. The tires had come off, and then the rims heated up, then the rims started to disintegrate, and rear end kind of heated up, and it got to a point where it was not drivable anymore. He pulled over, the individual who took it. We don't know why, don't know who he is, where he came from, why this crime of opportunity was so attractive to him to jump in the driver's seat, start up, and take a full-dress fire department ambulance for a ride down I-55. And if those rear wheels hadn't fallen apart, who knows where we'd be by now, past Pontiac or heading down towards Springfield. Usually those ambulances, they do have a full tank of gas, and so it wasn't really no danger of running out of gas anytime soon, unless there was any kind of damage to the tank, which there was not. And as you can see here, the state police are going to be working with, looks like the Chicago Battalion Chief is sitting down there in the middle lower portion of the frame. So they're keeping tabs on where the ambulance went. And with everything all said and done here, nobody was hurt. Nobody except the suspect suffered any kind of injuries whatsoever. So there's no harm to the troopers, to the general public. And the suspect was basically only roughed up out of necessity because they needed to take him into custody. And he really wasn't cooperating at the time that they had to chase him down. He'd still be running around on I-55. For his own good, he needed to be brought into custody in the quickest possible, and that was without any real injury to anybody else. So he is in custody in the Dwight ambulance across the way here. We'll widen back out, take a look across the road and see how I-55 northbound is doing. Looks like you've got one officer that's going to be making his way over to that pickup truck that was involved, that this individual tried to basically carjack on the fly in the middle of the northbound lanes of I-55. And so going back in down toward the Dwight EMS unit, Dwight paramedics here have that individual in the back, obviously doing a medical assessment and a trauma assessment, try and figure out what's going on here. Why did this individual act in such an irrational way? Why did they take an ambulance? Why did they not stop when ordered to do so? Why did they not surrender to the orders of law enforcement officers? Why did they run off and try and get in? Considering how fast the average vehicle is traveling in this stretch down here, well in excess probably of 70 miles an hour. And that individual tried to go ahead and get into a vehicle, and that did not work well. The officers were able to swarm into him and take him into custody, and that is where we are at right now outside of Dwight. Thank you for tuning into the live stream. I'm Chris Habermill, CBS 2 News. We'll have more on this developing story and the pursuit and everything having to do with it in later editions of the live stream, of course, here, so you can keep it right here, and also on our CBS 2 News tonight at 10. So stay tuned, and we will bring you up to date with all the information as it becomes available, as it develops right here, right now. Thank you very much. All right, Greg, we're getting down to bingo fuel. Alrighty, and we are out of here. All right. Excellent job, Craig. That was great. Excellent job, Roger. Thank you for catching up to this. I was going to say, yeah. Was 9 and 7 in on it too? Or did they have to? Yeah.